Oh, hello. Welcome to the 2013 Hundie Challenge. Today we're going to be discussing Lonely as the Night by Mouse Fitzgerald. Dee-doo-dee-doo-doo, dee-doo-doo-doo-dee-doo-doo-dee-doo-doo-doo, dee-doo-dee-doo-doo, dee-doo-doo-doo-dee-doo-doo-doo. You know, as an author... No, that's too pretentious. As a guy who pretends to know how to write, I can sort of appreciate this book. I can understand it. And I think maybe every writer, pens a book like this at some point in their lives. I've said this before, and it's still my intent. I haven't been reading the introductions or the prefaces or any of the additional material on these books. I feel like 100 novels is enough without reading all the junk. But what I do know is that this is like F. Scott Fitzgerald's Romana Clef autobiography kind of book. And this is all just from reading the back of the book. And that it was, not appreciated in his time. People didn't like it. They thought it wasn't as good as The Great Gatsby. And rightly so. And he was apparently very bothered by this, which is understandable, because everybody likes to think that their life would be a good novel. And what's unfortunate is that sometimes you're just a good writer, and your life is boring. I don't know if that's the case with Fitzgerald. I don't really know that much about him as a person. I know he's kind of like a 20s, 30s, bootlegger or flapper kind of guy. Maybe he had a really exciting life. But Tender as the Night was not an interesting or exciting book. I wouldn't recommend it at all. I'll just be upfront about that. And like I say, I don't want to shit on it. I understand these books are all on this list for a reason. I just kind of feel like almost like this just kind of made it on there because The Great Gatsby is so good that they sort of felt like they had to throw the bone to the guy. I mean, I know he's a dead guy, but I guess they're saying, if this man can write the greatest American novel of all time, surely another one of his novels is deserving of being on the list. I don't know. I haven't read Fitzgerald that widely, but this was not that book. It had a few touches of genius in it. There were a couple of times when I said, oh, that was a really perfect little bon mot, or, that was something that I have certainly felt before. Little touches that, I enjoyed. But it never went much further than that. I didn't care for the characters. I didn't care for the plot. There wasn't much by way of a plot. And there wasn't really a whole lot to the characters. I'm sure the great, that's part of the thing is I'm sure the great, Fitzgerald scholars of the world will tell me why I'm such a fool because I didn't realize that Dick Diver was Fitzgerald and Rosemary was this other famous person and all that sort of stuff. But I don't care. I feel like a novel has to stand on its own. That's always been my feeling. That's certainly been the feeling I've taken into this challenge. A novel should stand on its own. I can give a little bit of leeway because of the time frame, but I've read better books from the 30s than this. I read Studs Lonigan. It wasn't that great, but it flowed much better as a story, But anyway, like I said, I'm sure there are some scholars who will tell me why I'm a fool. But the whole story was about, and it doesn't even go chronologically, which again, that's not really a problem necessarily. It's all in the execution, but this horrible, just misogynist, misanthropic psychiatrist, Dick Diver, and at the time they were called alienists. They weren't called psychiatrists yet, so that's helpful to know. He pulls one of his patients out of the hospital and marries her and has kids with her, or maybe they're stepkids. I wasn't 100% clear on that point. And then he kind of falls out of love with her and falls for a kind of a Hollywood starlet who it kind of seems like towards the end of the book that she's never really going to make it. She just kind of had that one movie that she was good at and never really made it after that. And that's it. Dick cheats on his wife, Nicole. Nicole finds out about it, and she decides she's going to cheat on him with this guy, Tommy. And they're all expatriates, and they're all American expatriates in France. And Dick's a terrible, useless alcoholic who's not even any good as a psychiatrist. And he's obviously got terrible ethical problems. I think, like today you would just flat out have your license taken, but I can't imagine that falling in love with your patient was like smiled upon even in the 20s and the 30s. The most interesting, there were a couple of times when like I wasn't just slogging through it. Like that's the whole thing. It was like I couldn't read more than a page or two at a time. I would just get distracted by like a fly on the wall. That's how boring it is. Every once in a while I would get into the book. I think the most interesting thing that happened, and it wasn't even that interesting, was that a guy challenged another guy to a duel, which is really more of a 19th century thing, and it kind of got my interest up. Oh, hey, two guys in the 20th century, they're going to have a duel. That should be interesting. And then they decided, it's just for honor, so we'll stand at 40 paces away and just fire, and then honor will be satisfied. So they got me all revved up for a little while. Oh, there's going to be a duel, and then nothing happened. And that was the most interesting part of the book. And the rest of it was just kind of this, I'm sorry for Fitzgerald, but the rest of it is just kind of a roman à clef of his life that I didn't think turned out to be that interesting. So excoriate me in the comments. You know you've done it before. I didn't care for the book. I don't recommend the book. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Next time we will be looking at probably The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. Thanks for tuning in.